Today we are going to discuss about the Renaissance, how Renaissance began in Europe. Do you know this lesson is coming for your O-level examination and you have to study about the Renaissance in the lesson number 9 in grade 10. I will start discussing about Renaissance by giving you a simple example. You know that in ancient time period, Sri Lankan male they had wore saram, but late occasion they give up wearing saram and they started wearing trousers. But you have recognized in recent time period, our boys they used to wear saram with yaka mark. So that is a renaissance in clothes. So in simple terms, something had existed in our country, but due to some reasons, it had been disappeared. If that same thing pop up again in a modernized way, it's known as Renaissance. That is an example to describe about Renaissance in Europe. But we want to discuss for your examination what is Renaissance in Europe. I'm going to ask a question. Do you know in which century Renaissance began? Renaissance began 14th to 16th centuries. And in simple form, Renaissance means rebirth. It does mean rebirth or reawaken. So we can come to a conclusion right now. Renaissance in Europe means the wide transformation that took place in arts and science. So if you ask a definition, what does mean by Renaissance in Europe? You can answer Renaissance began in 14th to 16th centuries and it does mean wide transformation that occurred in the fields of art and science. Now let's move to discuss what are the reasons which affected to start Renaissance. There are four main reasons to start Renaissance. How many reasons? Four main reasons to start Renaissance. So reason number one is known as capturing of Constantinople by Turks. What is the first reason? Capturing of Constantinople by Turks. You know, Constantinople was very important at that time. Why? Because most of the important books which were written in Greek and Latin were stored in Constantinople. Therefore, the city of Constantinople is considered as a valuable city at that time. The problem was this Constantinople city was captured by Europeans. Therefore, most scholars, popular and renowned scholars, were stayed in Constantinople. But unfortunately, this city, Constantinople, was captured by Muslim Turks in 1453. So there will be a question, in which year Constantinople was captured by Turks? The answer is 1453. So when this city was captured by Muslim Turks, it was difficult to stay Roman Catholic scholars who were in Constantinople and who were Europeans. So what they did, after capturing Constantinople by Muslim Turks, they took those valuable books which were written in Greek and Latin from the libraries and they started to went to their mother countries and they started to study those books. That is the first reason to start Renaissance in Europe, capturing of Constantinople by Turks. My next question to you all, do you know what was the social system prevailed in Europe before starting Renaissance? It's known as feudal system, feudal social system. So feudal social system prevailed in the medieval era, which was considered as the before Renaissance. What does mean by feudal social system? In the feudal social system, there were two categories. First one is king and aristocracy, the other one is known as common people. All the lands in the country was belonged to king and aristocracy. And common people had to work very hard in the lands of aristocrats. But from the harvest, most of their harvest should be given to the king and aristocrats as a tax. This was the social system prevailed in Europe before Renaissance. But this was upside down with the beginning of 12th century. Why 12th century is important? To start the Renaissance, the second reason is known as growth in trade. The growth in trade was developed in Europe in 12th century AD. In 12th century AD, what happened? There were new job opportunities were created in Europe. Therefore, especially cities like Venice and Genoa, it created wealthy people, the people who invest their money on new jobs, they become wealthy people. So these wealthy people did not depend from the feudal nobles. They had a free mind to pay their attention on artistic work. So the second reason to start Renaissance was known as growth in trade in 12th century AD. What was the third reason to start Renaissance? It's known as intellectual revival. As we discussed, after capturing Constantinople by Turks, the most valuable books which were stored in the libraries in Constantinople were taken by the European scholars, and they went to their countries and started to study those books. As a result of that, what happened? New subjects like literature, drama, phonetics, and history came to the world. So, what happened then? This intellectual revival expanded because of people started to think in critically by referring those books. This became very, very popular after Gutenberg invented the printing machine in 1453. My next question is, in which country Renaissance began? The answer is in Italy, city of Florence. So if there was a question for your oral examination, what was the country or what was the city where Renaissance began? The answer, country Italy, the city Florence. The last and the fourth reason to start Renaissance known as criticism of the church. In the time period of medieval era, both the Pope and the Church had a great power. People accepted what was saying by the Pope and the Church. But with the intellectual revival, people started thinking logically and critically. So they started criticizing the weak points of the Church. The famous critics were known as John Wycliffe and Erasmus started to criticize the weak points of the Church and the Pope. So the fourth reasons to start Renaissance known as criticism of the Church.